shot of truth serum for your investment insurance questions. I am Josh Knoll, the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, and I'm joined by Mr. Jay Stubbs, Regional Director of First Protective Insurance Group. We are brought to you on the Prime Capital Investment Advisors podcast network. Today I am recording remotely, so my typical co-host Jay is not going to be able to join us, but all you fans of Jay out there have no fear, he'll be back for the next show. I do, however, have two very special guests from Qualified Plan Advisors, Tommy Mancuso and Chris Roper. If you're interested in learning more about retirement plans, you need to listen up. What is benchmarking? What is participation education? All kinds of nerdy stuff like that anyway. But before we dive into all this, let's have our friends from local band Sloth Racer kick us off. To welcome Chris and Tommy. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Not bad.
Now this is first time on a podcast.
Yeah, I'd say so. I did a baseball interview in high school for a local radio, but other than that, first radio podcast experience.
Very good. Well, what we want to do before we start diving into all the nerdy stuff is give the listeners an opportunity to know who are you, what do you do, and tell us a little bit more about Qualified Plan Advisors. So, Chris, I'm gonna start with you.
Sure. Thanks for having us today. Appreciate it. My name is Chris Roper, with Qualified Plan Advisors for about 10 years now. What I found over the years, why I got into the business and stayed in the business is I really love helping people out. So this gives me the opportunity to help a lot of people working with our clients, so working with plan sponsors or companies to help them with their retirement plans, both at the company level and then more importantly also at the participant level. So really being able to help a lot of people is why my passion, and being able to help those people out is great.
Perfect. All right, Tommy.
Yeah, my name is Tommy Mancuso, as Josh mentioned here, and been at Prime or Qualified Plan Advisors for coming up on my fourth year. Prior to that, I was at a wirehouse for a couple years. Really got in the business, and the reason I came over to Qualified Plan Advisors was the retirement plan side of things. There's obviously a little bit of a crisis going on, and I guess we could say the little guy's maybe been forgotten on an employee basis. So this really kind of allowed us to have that reach and go out and meet with those people one-on-one, kind of be that advisor for them. It's just a really strong way we can impact lives.
Perfect. Well, you all are new to the show, but what Jay and I typically do on Every Dollar Counts is we take these topics that everybody hears about every day, and they don't, a lot of times they don't want to ask the questions because they feel like they're asking a dumb question. When you all, the three of us know that's really not the case, right? So what we like to do is we like to take the two or three most important pieces of each individual topic and then just break it down, right? Mm-hmm. But before we do that, if you don't mind, Chris, just 30 seconds or so, what is Qualified Plan Advisors to the people that have not heard of the company?
Sure. So Qualified Plan Advisors is a registered investment advisor from the federal standpoint that goes out and specifically designed to, and our mission is to help plans and plan sponsors meet their fiduciary obligations with their investments, with their plan design, and with their participants.
Perfect. Very well. All right. So before the show, we were talking about 3 or 4 things we wanted to cover. And both of you, a topic came up right off the bat when I said, what are some of the most important topics related to retirement plans? And that was benchmarking. So, Tommy, let's you know what benchmarking is, mm-hmm. backwards, forwards, up, and down, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they're thinking benchmarking is like, marking on a bench, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought for business. So what's benchmarking?
Yeah, so benchmarking, when you kind of look at it, it's taking a step back and looking at your plan and making sure all the proper things are in line. What we've seen is plans don't get looked at for a handful of years. People look at their insurance.
They kind of set it and forget it.
Yeah, set it and forget it, exactly. Right. But things change in the retirement plan world. And benchmarking is, let's take a step back, look at the plans. Are we getting the best costs? Are we working with the right provider or record keeper? So it's kind of having those checks and balances and seeing, are we competitive in this space? Plans grow. We're making contributions to retirement plans every day. So when you get more assets under your belt, your costs can be driven down significantly. Right. Every single day we see plans that have retail shares that have $10 million in them. We can get that at an institutional price. Right. So it's just making sure those are in order, and also making sure from a fiduciary checkpoint that you're protected from a liability standpoint. Just making sure your plan design, your liability, and your fees are all in order, I would say.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, and jumping in on that, really what it comes down to is there's a lot of legalese reasons to do this, but at the end of the day, to benchmark, to be a good steward of other people's money, you want to make sure you're getting the best deal for them, the best value for them. So as you as a plan sponsor, a company owner, a committee member that might be listening to this, it's not your money. You're a steward of other people's money.
Great point.
And to do that, you really need to be making sure on a regular basis, the government, the courts tell us about every 3 years, that you're taking a deep dive and looking into this. I think another thing we can talk about, and Tommy and I talk about this all the time, is a lot of times we will meet people and they say, oh, well, I did that, or my provider did that for me. My record keeper said, hey, you're paying the right fees. Okay, but what we see is if you take it and I look, like Tommy mentioned, from an insurance point of view, are you ever going to go to the person that's actually providing you a service and say, hey, am I paying enough money? Right? Like you don't do the things that way.
Right.
So what we like to do, and Tommy does a great job of this, is we'll take your plan out there and say, hey, from a blind benchmark perspective, okay, so what would it cost if somebody else were to do that? If they're bidding on your plan,
right?
So not your current provider, somebody new saying, hey, we want your business, what are you going to pay for it? And when you look at that, you get way better results doing a benchmark that way than you do having your provider come back and tell you, right, Tommy?
Exactly, and kind of pick up where Chris was going. A lot of people will benchmark their plan by going off a book of averages. Why would you want to have your plan be average? I mean, if there's an average and you're in line with the average, well, someone's getting a lower cost. So why would you not want to be competitive in that space? And benchmarking would take you through that process and driving that cost, making sure you're all plan level and all the service is in order.
Well, do you all, I feel like the retirement plan business has, like everything else, it's changing rapidly. Do you all feel like it's just gotten way more competitive in the last couple of years? I mean, what have you seen firsthand?
For sure. When we look back, and really since 2012, the government put out a regulation called 408B2. And when they did that, the thought process behind it was people don't know what they're paying. And it's just really muddy. The water's muddy. They don't know what they're doing. So the government came in and said, hey, we're going to have this regulation. The providers that are your providers, your service providers, are going to have to disclose to you how much money they're charging you.
Right.
Full money. And this is a really good idea. What happened was, we see the problem is the lawyers got involved. Okay? And when lawyers get involved, now these disclosures are 10, 15 pages long. You don't really know what you're paying.
Right.
And the other part of that regulation was not just, hey, tell the service providers, tell the plan sponsor how much you're getting paid. But the other thing is the plan sponsor is supposed to know, okay, how much are they getting paid and is it reasonable? And that's the part that we really see plan sponsors not really understanding. And that's how we help people out, is like making sure their fees are reasonable and it's a good value for them and their employees. Benchmarking goes along to actually help document that process and show the government when you're getting an IRS or a DOL audit, or your participants come in and just talk to you.
Right.
Are we getting a good deal? And you can confidently tell people, yes, we went out and looked at this. We know we're getting a good deal.
That's extremely well said. And on that note, I think with all the changes and the competitiveness and, like you said, DOL audits and things like that, I think there's a word that has really risen up into the common everyday lexicon of an investor or a participant plan, and that is
Fiduciary. Yep.
So let's talk about fiduciary.
You want to go ahead and start that off, Tommy?
I mean, we both could tackle this pretty good, but yeah, from a fiduciary checkpoint, let's just put it in simple terms. If you could eliminate most of your liability, why would you not take advantage of that? So you need to be working with a 338 usually fiduciary advisor. That's going to help you protect the boardroom. I mean, that's one of our main goals of this, is protecting the boardroom. And when you do that, you see it trickle down where we're taking better care of the employees and everyone from that standpoint. Having that in-house or ERISA attorneys here, I mean, that's it's been super advantageous for us to have that internal resource as a firm here. But making sure you have that 338 protection or even 321, there are certain reasons why you maybe want to have the co-fiduciary. But ultimately, if you have some level of protection, why not take advantage of it?
So you all are going to start watching the show more now, and what you're going to learn is Jay Stubbs, my co-host, brilliant like you two. And I'm no dummy, but I play the guy off the street.
Yeah.
So I get to ask the questions of the guy off the street. So what's a 338? Fiduciary advisor.
Let's unpack that and take a step backwards.
Definitely.
So let's start with fiduciary, just in case there's anybody out there, even though it's big in the lexicon, as you said. Let's take a step back and say, hey, what is a fiduciary? A fiduciary is a fancy word. It means doing what's in the client's best interest. Okay?
Period.
That's it. You have to, by law, do what's in the client's best interest. And when you look at a fiduciary when it comes to retirement plans, the plan sponsor, so your people that are listening to this who are sponsoring a 401k plan, a 403b plan, a 457, they are fiduciaries. They have to do what's in the best interest of their participants because it's their money. The courts say this is one of the highest duties known by law.
I agree.
Okay, so fiduciary, that's what it is, doing what's in their best interest. A lot of times people, what we find out, they think they're working with fiduciaries, like, oh, of course, my record keeper,
right.
They're a fiduciary. But really, at the end of the day, they're not. And what we have to help people find out is, let's look through the contracts and figure out, are you working with a fiduciary? Not just something that will help you with fiduciary responsibilities, but actually be a fiduciary for you. So when Tommy talks about 321 and 338, these are industry jargon terms, right? Mm-hmm. So let's look in these for a minute. 321 fiduciary, that's a code from the government that says, I'm a co-fiduciary. So how I like to think about it is this. Josh, let's say that you're offering a 401k plan to your company, ABC Construction, you have 100 people, and I'm a 321 fiduciary to your plan. So I'm helping you, and my duty is to give you information, but you're making decisions. So really how I like to think about it, at this table, we're both at the table. If something goes wrong and you get sued, we're both at the table together. When a 338 comes in, you're actually saying, hey, I give you, Tommy and Chris, discretion over these assets. It's called the fund lineup, right? Okay. To actually pick these investments for us using a process. And that allows you to actually step up from the table and remove yourself from the liability. You actually transfer the liability from you to us. It's the greatest, and this is from one of our risk attorneys, it's the greatest ability to transfer liability off of you to someone else in retirement plans, is that space.
That's when you all refer to protecting the boardroom. That's exactly what you mean right there.
Exactly.
Right. That's fantastic. Well, so on this note, with the industry jargon and the retirement plans and the competitiveness and the benchmarking, I think that with technology there has been somewhat, I don't want to say commodity, because what is really a commodity, right? Something that's always the same, widget after widget. That's not necessarily the case in a retirement plan. However, there has been a somewhat of a normalizing of the offerings and things like that, and there's been some fee compression. And maybe that's related to the 2012 rule, I don't know. But what do you feel, with that said, what do you feel that qualified plan advisors brings to the table in that environment that would be considered like a value-added service, something that would help separate the company with the services you're offering?
Sure, and yeah, that's a really good point. When we actually look at the history of the landscape, especially in the last 10 years, a 338 advisor like ourselves was very rare, and now it's everywhere. And now you can even get what we call bolt-on services, where you never ever actually meet the advisor and they just run screens in the background. Right. So to run a screen on a mutual fund is not that hard. The software does it for you. Right. We have a process that we believe works very well for participants, and we follow that process and we document that process. But honestly, at the end of the day, a lot of people can do that. Right. The value that we bring beyond that is really into human capital and caring. We care more, we believe, than anybody else out there about the success of your plan and your participants. Okay, so some of the things that we're looking at are, when we talk to plan sponsors, Tommy and I were at a conference just a couple months ago, and most plan sponsors that come, they say, if you ask them, hey, why do you have a 401k plan? What do they say, Tommy?
Retain employees, really.
Right?
I mean,
So
you get a pretty stereotypical answer.
Yeah, they want
employees.
Attract and retain employees. But what really happens when you ask them and dig deeper is, hey, what are you doing to actually attract people? Oh, well, I mean, we tell them we have a 401k. Right? Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's in the brochure, but we don't really do anything. Well, what happens if somebody's getting courted by your competition down the street? How does that 401k help retain them? Well, we don't really do anything. Right. So one of the big value adds that we have is we take, in the boardroom setting, we try to learn the goals of the company. And we try to take the communication that the company cares about their employees, and we take that from the boardroom all the way down to participant. And then also, while we're talking to participants, we're interviewing them, we're talking to them when we're talking about their financial situations, and we're bringing that information back to the boardroom. So we can have that communication from a third party back and forth,
Right.
to really help those participants understand the plan sponsor cares about them and create that culture of they care, they want you to succeed. It's a good environment to work in. And then 2, giving feedback to the boardroom of what the people are actually saying so they can make a better offering and make a benefit, not just to have a benefit, but a benefit that actually works for its intended purpose.
And jump on that, and this is more on a grand scale of things, from a fiduciary standpoint, or looking about this changing landscape of the retirement plan world. Our human capital and the risk attorneys we have, we always like to say in hockey, they used to always skate where the puck is at currently. We're trying to skate where the puck is going to be ahead. And that's where you have, the engagement of some of our risk attorneys in Washington. Matthew Eichmann, he's the chair of the defined contribution of the American Bar Association for the 401ks essentially. So he's involved with those conversations. He knows where that puck is going.
All right. Well, all right. So on that note, looking down the road. So again, guy off the street guy here, right? You have participants. We're going to do one more topic. I have a question for you. We'll start with you, Tommy. Is you have participants trying to save for retirement, but retirement seems like such a long goal, and it's almost unattainable when they're trying to maybe make it to Friday or make it to the end of the month. What kind of services do you all do? Any type of, in the big health industry now, it's wellness visits, right?
Yeah.
Does Qualified Plan Advisors do anything related to someone's financial wellness?
Financial wellness is the hot topic in this world right now. We like to call the employee sometimes the little guy, and they've been forgotten a little bit. There's been a lot of change, and those people need help. They're sometimes afraid to ask for it as well. Everyone thinks they're going fine, they're going through the motions. We like that active one-on-one engagement. We'll go out there, we'll do a group presentation, and then we'll fill the rest of our day meeting with employees that maybe don't have the resources to sit down with someone with a financial background, or they just didn't come from it. They didn't know those resources were available for them. So getting that message out and talking to the little guy is just as critical. And when you look at it for long-term studies and whatnot, if you have financially well employees, there's a difference between someone that has to go to work and someone that wants to go to work. There's a difference. So someone at 66 who wants to retire but they can't, that person's not happy coming to work in the middle of the day. The person at 66 who could retire and they're enjoying work because they want to be there, that's the employee you want. So getting them to start early is always something, but it's never too late. We have conversations with people in their 40s and 50s who haven't done it. It's never too late, and they delay it for some reason. But if you just keep getting them now, time value of money is one of the most important things.
Well, that's perfect. That's well said. So that's a great way to wrap it up. You have any final thoughts before I end it up? Anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so today. Appreciate you having us on the show.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you all. You guys did a fantastic job. So another show in the can. First, I want to thank Qualified Plan Advisors members here, Tommy Mancuso and Chris Roper. Again, great job. Also, many thanks to our producer, Johnny Gwynn of Deep Fried Studios. To my co-host, Jay Stubbs, who couldn't be here today, but he'll be back. You guys will love him. And then a huge shout out to all of you all that have joined us on this journey, and to those that are joining us now. This has been Every Dollar Counts with Josh and Jay. Thank you. Have a great day. Advisory services offered through Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, PCIA, a federally registered investment advisor. PCIA, doing business as Prime Capital Wealth Management, PCWM, and Qualified Plan Advisors, QPA. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is independent of Prime Capital Advisors. Information presented is for educational purposes only, is not an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. All investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, be sure to consult a tax professional before implementing any tax or investment strategies.